Welcome to Digital Thread Bites, a workforce development podcast produced by the Digital Thread Initiative team at Sinclair College in Dayton, Ohio. In this podcast, the team discusses the coming revolution in digital, highlighting digital transformation success stories and opportunities for learning. Here are your hosts, Elizabeth Generous and Jennifer Gravitt.
Hello, and welcome to the first Digital Thread Bites podcast. I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And we make up the Digital Thread Initiative at Sinclair College.
We'd like to take a moment and thank our supporters. Sinclair College, Find the Need and Endeavor to Meet It, Arctos, All In, and the United States Air Force, powered by airmen, fueled by innovation.
For the first Digital Thread Bites podcast, we have guest Dr. Radu Pavel, who is Vice President and Chief Technology Officer and Chief Engineer at TechSolve down in Cincinnati, Ohio.
He's joining us today to talk about the digital thread so that we have a foundation of knowledge to explore the digital thread further in the rest of our episodes.
Welcome, Radu. Thank you so much for being our guest on this inaugural Digital Thread Bites podcast. We're very excited to have you with us. Elizabeth and I are here, and we just want to find out what you know about the digital thread. And you can start, if you'd like to, by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do at TechSolve.
Thank you. And I would like to start by thanking you for inviting me at this podcast. Happy to talk about digital manufacturing and share some of my knowledge. I am Dr. Radu Pavel. I am Vice President, Chief Technology Officer, and Chief Engineer for TechSolve in Cincinnati, Ohio. TechSolve is just a few words, privately owned, not-for-profit organization, 501c3. We're providing manufacturing process solutions, IIoT services and products, business advisory, and cybersecurity services. We're also part of the National Manufacturing Extension Partnership Network. We are a state and federal MEP center. And we get engaged with manufacturers at all levels, small and medium size, large OEMs. Also, we work with academia and federal funded organizations such as NIST or Manufacturing USA Institute. A bit more about myself. I'm an engineer by trade. I started as a mechanical engineer. I got a master and a PhD in mechanical engineering. And then I wanted to specialize in manufacturing. I wanted to also know how things could be made. And I got a PhD in manufacturing engineering. I worked in organizations in Europe and United States. I'm with TechSolve since 2004. And at TechSolve, I had the opportunity to lead various programs and projects that are related and were related to accelerating the adoption of digital manufacturing technologies by manufacturers. So happy to be here today, and I look forward to your questions.
Awesome.
Thank you. We're happy you're here too. So knowing that your field of expertise is in multiple areas, mechanical engineering, manufacturing, what's a common myth that someone might think about those areas?
Right. So there are multiple myths actually, and jokes about it, right?
Right.
But getting serious, I would like to address the latest trend, right? The implementation of digital manufacturing or digital technologies in manufacturing and design, by the way. So digitalization is not just for manufacturing. It's broadly, it's a broad trend, and it brings benefits to the design, the mechanical engineering side, the manufacturing side. The one common myth about that is that digital transformation and digitalization, it's really only good and profitable for large organizations. So I keep hearing this a lot, or I kept hearing this a lot. There's more understanding now. And I'd like to say that that's definitely a myth, right? Digitalization can be very efficient, profitable for small and medium-sized manufacturers as well. There's a number of benefits that can be reaped from digitalization. And as a matter of fact, the large OEMs, the large organizations, are dependent on their supply chain, for small and medium size, adopting these technologies. So there's a lot of benefit in that. It doesn't have to be a huge overhaul. It can be simple solutions, but solutions that make business sense and help with this transition into a digital environment.
That's a very great explanation. I mean, that is a myth that I think that we've heard too, and since we've been learning so much about this, is that they think you have to be super big and have really deep pockets to make this effective for your company, and that's just not true. So thank you for that answer. So let's talk about maybe if you were to start a business in digital transformation tomorrow, what would that business look like?
Well, that's an interesting question. And as a matter of fact, thinking of what we previously discussed, right, when we mentioned about this myth of larger companies and smaller companies, I see a need for awareness creation, education, and helping small and medium-sized manufacturers adopt these digital technologies. So if it were me, I see good opportunity in creating a company that would help manufacturers implement digital technologies in a very efficient manner, and in a manner that brings the ROI, the return on investment, right? So that would be my thought. There are certain areas associated with this where I feel I would potentially excel, helping collect data from manufacturing floor, applying advanced analytics to extract actionable information. But from my point of view, having a broad view of the product life cycle where digitalization helps create that thread between, let's say, the requirements, design stage, modeling and simulation, manufacturing, assembly, and operation, and then eventually end of life. There's many opportunities, and I'd love to help manufacturers understand those and implement them in a wise manner. So that would be my idea.
It's a great idea.
And I think we're all here to help, which is just such an impressive community.
Just about to add that I feel I'm at the point that understanding some of the challenges manufacturers are facing, especially at a small and mid-level, there's definitely space for contractors, integrators, educators to help them understand where these digital technologies can help and where they can start. Often this is a big obstacle. I hear all these buzzwords and I hear about all this benefit of this, benefit of that. But then, when I look at my situation, where can I start, right? How do I complete that assessment of my current state and develop a vision for future state and implement that in my factory, right? So that's where I think manufacturers would benefit of help.
So what is the biggest challenge then to a smaller medium manufacturer?
Well, thinking of challenges, there's quite a few. And talking about biggest, it's really relative to an organization. In general, if we think at a generic level, so to speak, I think identifying a path that would provide a solution for that specific case, for that specific organization, company, and how this implementation would give the ROI that's intended. I think that's one of the biggest challenges, and I'm saying one of, and not necessarily the biggest challenge. As I said, that depends on the characteristics of the business, size of the business, and then it's also a matter of, well, knowing my business, I don't necessarily know all the technologies that are available. How would they integrate together? The speed of developments and new technologies coming up, new integration opportunities, it's so fast nowadays that it could be confusing. Then you need to think of, I need the workforce that's able to handle those technologies. So all of a sudden you see creating this plan, creating this path of adoption, it's not easy. And I think it's a considerable challenge for all manufacturers and maybe particularly for small and medium size.
That's great. I really like how you said it's not the only big challenge. That's definitely true. And also I really appreciate the way that there's no umbrella protocol for every company. It's very unique. It needs to be customized to their needs and their cases. So I appreciate that answer for sure. So let's talk about then very quickly, like what it is about digital transformation as broad and as complex as it can get. Is there anything that keeps you up at night? regarding this.
Right. So speaking of challenges, right,
Right.
and number of challenges. So thinking of tough question, right? What keeps me up at night? Quite a number of things, but in principle, from the viewpoint of digital transformation, we're looking at, and maybe this for me, it's the main thing, is keeping up with the speed of developments, transformations that happen. Especially in my role, I always need to be aware of where the technology is going, where the trends are going, what would benefit our customers. We want to support manufacturers. What are the better solutions for them? And I don't want to fall behind. I don't want to be outdated. So I need to keep up with that information. Another reason is cybersecurity. I didn't talk until now about cybersecurity. We're looking at two basically areas that are not really separated, but I tend to look at them in terms of having security for what we do, having security for our products. If we deploy IoT solution services, we want to ensure there's security with collection of the data, transfer of the data, but also with regulations, compliance. Probably some of the manufacturers have already heard about cybersecurity maturity model certification, CMMC. If they have worked with Department of Defense, for example, they would have to have this model implemented, and then they would be audited and so on. In our case, we're also working on projects that require the certification. So we want to make sure we practice what we preach. We are top of the line, so to speak, and then we also help our customers, manufacturers, to identify best ways to stay secure and compliant. And then I would mention really quick maybe two other things. The budget, right? Every implementation requires some investment. And it's not just the money, it's also investment of people's time. It's also understanding what training needs to be taken. And finally is finding the right talent, right? Workforce development is very important now. It's for a very strong reason. These technologies develop so fast, as I said, that sometimes it's hard to keep up and have people that are trained and up to date with what's going on. So we want to make sure we train internally, and then when we look out for incoming workforce, we want to make sure they have proper background, proper preparation. So these are some of the things that are in my thoughts, and I would guess others will probably agree with me, but again, depends from organizations to organization.
That's great. We would agree. We're pretty new to workforce, but the speed that it's moving, it makes sense to partner with somebody like an education, academia, to actually offer some of that training. It's great. Hopefully we get a lot of listeners. If they'd like to contact you or TechSolve, they're interested in that pathway that's really specific to their company, where would they find you? How could they get a hold of TechSolve contacting you?
Yes, this should not be difficult. We're in the digital era, right? Internet is used very heavily. So please look us up on the internet at www.techsolve.org. You can reach me by email at pavel@techsolve.org. And you can also meet me in person. Sinclair had this idea and great initiative to organize some workshops tackling digital transformation that are going to happen in person. And the first workshop, I believe it's going to be November 9. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's where you can find me and discuss with me one-on-one in person. And from what I learned from Sinclair, it looks like it's going to be a great event. So I invite you to attend it on November 9th. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Radu. We really appreciate your time, not only with this podcast, but also in preparing for that upcoming workshop. And you are correct, it will be November 9th here at the Sinclair Conference Center, and they can find the link pretty easily. We will be blasting that everywhere. So we really appreciate your time. Thank you for the very insightful answers. And I'll see if Elizabeth has anything further for you, or...
I think another great way to connect might be LinkedIn. We're going to put this podcast and the workshops on LinkedIn. So you would just search for Workforce Sinclair. I think TechSolve is probably on LinkedIn also, so that would be a great way to connect.
That is a great idea. You can also find me on LinkedIn. You can also find TechSolve on LinkedIn. And as I was saying earlier, internet is a great tool nowadays. Please use it.
It's hard to hide on the internet. Thank you so much, Radu. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And it's very nice having me today. I enjoyed the conversation and I look forward to meeting the workshop attendants on November 9th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. The Digital Thread Initiative team would like to thank Sinclair College, prime contractor Arctos, the United States Air Force, and our guests for walking into the future with us. If you'd like to contact Sinclair's Digital Thread Initiative, please email sinclairdigitalthread@gmail.com.